We're excited by the opportunity to tell you about customer discovery. We believe that the process of seeking the customer voice to inform development of new ideas and products is essential to your classwork, your research, and to your career. This video is part of a series of modules created to introduce students to research and help address potential barriers many experience. For example, you're experiencing belonging uncertainty if you don't see that you have the skills, vocabulary, experience, connections, and knowledge to function in a particular setting or environment. Most worrisome is that many have belonging uncertainty about their field of study. We should never underestimate the power of these perceptual barriers, which can even overshadow real barriers as detrimental to motivation and achievement within academics. We believe that engagement with faculty and students in a laboratory setting can train skills and inspire confidence to reduce these barriers. We have developed this suite of learning modules, which we have used in conjunction with undergraduate research to welcome students into the laboratory. The modules can be found on our website, eqpoint.info. The modules are free to use and distribute. The modules were created with grants from the National Science Foundation. I'm Karen Berg. I'm a bioengineer working in a clinical setting. Dr. Tim Berg, Dr. Jordan Gilmore, and I, with input from numerous graduate and undergraduate students, have developed this module on customer discovery. We have learned a great deal as we worked in our laboratories and collaborated with students. One of the most important skills we have discovered is to listen. The customer discovery process is about helping us better grow our new ideas or products by understanding who could help develop those ideas or products and how to listen to what they tell us. As we pursue our careers and interests, we seek to create new ideas or products that someone wants. As engineers and business people, we seek to create products that solve problems and customers would buy. As researchers, we seek to create knowledge that extends our understanding and funders would support. And as social workers, we seek to create improved lives that donors or agencies would support. All of these endeavors are like solving complex puzzles. Where then do we find the pieces we need to complete the puzzles? We all know that we should review the literature to find out what has been done and suggestions for next steps. There is a lot of information available at our fingertips, and it is easy to become complacent and believe this is all the information we need. The customer discovery process says that the people around a particular problem have valuable insights, information, anecdotes, history, and so forth. That will help us understand the customer and their needs. These people may not look like experts or be labeled as experts, but this is where we must ask good questions and listen carefully. There are many things that make creating new ideas or products challenging. However, one of the most powerful yet easy to address is understanding who would be a customer for our new idea or product and what problem they have that we could solve. In other words, what is their pain? We have to look inside the mind of the customer to understand what they need or want. Actually, all we really have to do is ask. However, this has proven difficult. It has been the downfall of many ideas and products. It is difficult to talk to the customer, and it is really difficult to listen to their answers. Really difficult. Really, really difficult. So why is it so difficult? Simply stated, we don't listen very well. Even when we ask, we are limited by our ability to listen to the voice of the customer when they tell us what they want or need. When we ask questions, which often we don't even attempt, we usually are either pressing our own agenda, passing judgment, or blocked by our preconceived notions of what the customer wants. While exaggerated, do you identify yourself in this conversation? The customer is saying, red is an important warning color for us. We never use that color. Don't use red. But the questioner has already decided on red and isn't listening to the answer. The questioner is thinking, I like red. They will learn to love it too. And in this instance, that's probably not the case. We often hear what supports our own perspective. We must listen to the real answers. Listening is a skill that takes a lot of practice. The stakes are high. If we don't create and implement new ideas, we will be left behind and become obsolete. Our business, research, and nonprofit work will become irrelevant and fail. If we don't listen to the customer, we may solve a problem that doesn't need solving. This is not a solution to a customer need, and they will not pay for it. Or we may miss a problem that could be solved. The customer has a problem, they will pay for a solution, but we just don't know the problem exists. If you find yourself saying, "We just introduced the new high-wind security system for loose paper," you may be solving the wrong problem. Does anyone really want a new paperweight? This could lead to wasting time and money. Now, obviously, this is a problem that needed to be solved. Candles were a high-demand solution for a very long time. As inventors, designers, and business persons continued to think about the problem, they continued to ask, what do people need now? Would you have listened to that powerful voice in your own head saying, that problem is solved, or would you have sought new solutions? The Edison light bulb was a great invention, a solution that actually stood for over 100 years. Even a great solution can be improved. Can we use less power? New technologies may provide new solutions. But what do customers really want? Would they pay more for a more efficient bulb? Of course, there's always the challenge from yourself and others in thinking, that problem is already solved. The compact fluorescent bulb used less energy than the standard incandescent bulb, but it was not widely loved. As the next solution was developed, it was important to understand what customers saw as limitations. Note the customer may not be just the user. In this case, disposal was a concern. Thus, the customer may include a spectrum of voices about the product life cycle. Of course, there's always the challenge from yourself and others. That problem is already solved. Here's today's light bulb. Hopefully now we see that we should always keep asking what could be done better. Lost opportunities can be as costly as wasted resources. The benefits of seeking the customer voice to inform development of new ideas and products has been captured in the customer discovery process. The process has been shown in various forms, such as the Lean Startup, which is an organized approach to start a business relying heavily on customer feedback. Customer discovery is fundamentally a charge to think about what could be learned from people with potential knowledge in your field of interest, and then pursuing discussion in an organized manner. I talked with a friend about the proposed idea. Well, great. Let's talk with 100 more people so that we really know. The customer discovery process is meant to systematically seek the customer voice by talking to many people. The process can be laid out in 3 steps. The first step is to observe a problem that needs to be solved and then form the hypothesis and assumptions about the problem. Most people start with an idea or product that they want to explore. This first step is about identifying who has the problem that you are solving and how much pain does it really cause them. In fact, the process is about correctly understanding the problem in order to later refine your solution. The second step is to talk to people about your problem statement. Consider the discussions as the opportunity to test your hypothesis. You are not selling your solution or new idea, just listening. Don't argue. The third step is to use the information from the customer discussions to refine and evolve the hypothesis and assumptions. Repeat the customer discussions and hypothesis changes until you feel that you have converged on a true problem statement. As we move through our work and personal lives, we likely see many things that we wish were better or different, or perhaps we see unanswered research questions. Often, we move on with the hope that someone will solve them. Occasionally, we realize, I could solve that, and set out to create a solution. Common thinking would suggest that you create a solution and then sell the solution to those who need it. However, a more enlightened approach is to first prove that what you believe to be a problem is in fact a deficiency that needs to be addressed, and second, that someone is willing to pay for a solution to that problem. Follow a scientific approach to gather the proof. That is, form a hypothesis and gather data that support or discredit the hypothesis. The hypothesis is a statement about your understanding of the problem, and your proof is the opinions of the people you talk to who have expertise in this arena. Note that expertise could mean credentials and formal training, or it could mean experience or frequent use of an existing product or system. Let's form a hypothesis for the leaky pipe. Building owners don't want liquid on their floors. With that understanding, a solution is clear. Once a potential problem has been identified, you must verify that two basic assumptions are met. The first is that what you believe to be a problem is in fact a deficiency that needs to be addressed, and the second is that someone is willing to pay for a solution to that problem. With a hypothesis in hand, we need to identify who to ask. Gathering critical data or information from the right people may be a daunting task, but can be managed if carefully thought out beforehand. The obvious first step is to identify the potential end users of your product or idea. This could be an end user from a single profession, or it could target a more generalized audience. For example, let's pretend you have an idea for a new stethoscope. An obvious end user would be a nurse or doctor who uses a stethoscope. But if you stop here, you've failed. For example, once you have identified potential end users, you can then broaden your list to other people who are affected by the problem and have an opinion about it. For example, a patient who is asked about a stethoscope may say, "I'd like to hear what the doctor hears." This is a new perspective on the problem. A solution environment may be complex. For example, the end user may not actually make purchasing decisions. The adage, "babies don't buy baby food," is a clear reminder that we need to talk with those who make purchasing decisions. There are a number of other people that will need to be consulted to bring your idea to fruition. From a product development perspective, this could mean speaking to other engineers or researchers, consulting with manufacturers on scaling up your design, as well as speaking with business managers, marketing, and advertising specialists. There are people who may affect the form of an idea or product, such as members of a professional or licensing organization. But if you stop here, you've still failed. Ask everyone you talk with, "Who else should I speak with?" Note that we have been using the term customer very generically. There are a number of voices that you need to capture. As you explore your idea or product, it is important to identify data sources such as end users, influencers, recommenders, who may also be current users, decision makers, these could be program managers or budget directors, economic buyers, who are generally found in the purchasing department, or saboteurs, for example, competitors. You must learn from each type of customer. Here is a scenario. You are working in an engineering lab that discovered a novel way to screen blood samples for a diagnostic test. You believe this could have a large impact on medical diagnostic testing, but you need to learn more about the current market and potential customer needs. Create a list of potential people you should connect with to learn more about the market. Think from all perspectives: clinical, engineering, financial, and so forth. You can pause the video and take a few minutes to identify the people with whom you might want to talk. Thinking through the life cycle of a test, there are a lot of people we need to talk to. Failure to understand any of these perspectives could mean failure for a new test. So here's a starting list relevant to a medical diagnostic. The list includes people who pay for tests or approve payment, the insurance administrators, the Center for Medicaid Services, office managers, people who approve a new test such as regulators, people who analyze test results such as a doctor or a specialist, people who manufacture the test or the manufacturer of related products, people involved in distributing the test, people administering the test such as doctors, nurses, physicians' assistants, medical technicians, patients, people who interpret test results such as a doctor or a specialist, people who have developed similar products. Additionally, you might be able to find someone who has attempted to solve a similar problem who would have valuable information. Look into parallel markets such as veterinary medicine. As we said before, always ask the question, "Who else should I talk to?" And realize that talking to all these people is difficult, and yes, it will take time. Defining the customer and capturing their voice is a skill that takes a lot of practice. Once you've identified potential customers and professionals, you need to carefully craft questions to ask during an interview. These questions should be as open-ended as possible. This is not to get feedback on your own ideas or validate your own biases. The purpose is to let the customer lead you to the problem and maybe even a solution. Your questions should be non-specific to your design or idea and should focus on gaining a broad understanding of the challenges your client currently faces. Some example questions that can be applied to many topics are: what does a typical day look like for you in the workplace? What do you like or dislike most about your job? What are the most difficult challenges you face? If you structure your interview in an open-ended way, you will often find yourself asking many follow-up questions and discovering things that never occurred to you. Let the customer lead you naturally. Don't lead the customer. At the end of each interview, always ask if there's anything else you should be asking. More often than not, there are so many things you didn't know to ask. This question can elucidate something that may be important to your client, but would never have occurred to you. Also, be sure to ask your customer if they could connect you with additional professional contacts that can assist during your customer discovery process. Back to our leaky pipe example, let's talk with owners, maintenance staff, engineers, property managers, and ask, what are the biggest problems you face in maintaining your buildings? Maybe they will mention leaky pipes. If not, we could guide the conversation to ask if leaky pipes are a problem, and if yes, how they deal with them. Let's practice formulating open-ended questions. Determine whether each question is leading or open-ended. Change leading questions to be open-ended. Pause the video to consider each question. You always go into the office on the weekends, right? This question limits the answer to a specific time period and encourages the customer to answer affirmatively. You could learn more by restating this question. For example, do you work outside normal business hours? If so, where? The question, what is your favorite part of the day, allows various interpretations and responses and is a good question. Assuming you are looking for a favorable activity, maybe follow up with a least favorable question. Isn't it true that the tests were always positive? This question encourages the customer to agree with you, even if they may not. It could also sound confrontational. A more useful question might be, what outcomes do you see from the tests? By asking, is a screwdriver or a drill the best tool for this job, you are taking away the possibility that the customer has thought of a better tool. You would hate to miss this opportunity. A more open-ended question is, what tool would be the best for this job? The question, what is the weather like for this area, may be useful to you. If you really want to know the weather, however, you could look that up. But asking may help calibrate their response to other questions. So this question might be okay, but possibly you would want to know what other factors affect your work. The question, does it really take 30 minutes to complete this task, seems combative and doesn't elicit much information, perhaps only a yes or a no. You need to learn more. How long does it typically take for the task? Or a question like, what is the longest or shortest amount of time, might give you better insight. The question, how many times do you vacation each year, might be okay, but you might want to really ask, who performs this task if you are not there? Asking good questions is a skill that simply takes a lot of practice. The third step is to analyze the information you have gathered and decide whether the current hypothesis about the problem has captured a clear truth, should be revised, or perhaps completely rejected in favor of a new hypothesis referred to as a pivot. This should be done frequently. The hypothesis should evolve and become more focused as you talk with more people. If you feel like you now completely understand the problem, then it is time to start exploring a solution, maybe even the one you originally envisioned. However, unless you feel that no more interviews will change your knowledge, the interviews, Step 2, should continue. In our leaky pipe example, maybe we have learned and revised our hypothesis to something like, building owners need a way to stop leaks before a plumber arrives. This understanding of the problem could lead to very different solutions that are more relevant to the problem. The National Science Foundation has invested in the customer discovery philosophy through the National Science Foundation Innovation Corps, or I-Corps program. The program is designed to help researchers translate laboratory discoveries into ideas and products. Participants learn to identify opportunities for their research and then capitalize on the economic and societal benefits of NSF-funded fundamental research projects. The core of this program is to systematically interview potential customers, partners, and other business stakeholders to understand if the technological innovation may form the basis for a sustainable business model. The course is an accelerated version of entrepreneur Steve Blank's Lean Launchpad course. Participants work to complete the business model canvas, which comprises 9 questions that must be answered before considering launching a new venture. In the NSF program, participants must seek to talk in person with over 100 people about the problem they are proposing to solve. They complete the canvas using a series of hypotheses for each section. The hypotheses are updated and modified as the customer voice becomes clearer. From 2011 to 2019, the NSF I-Corps program graduated over 1,000 I-Corps teams with almost 4,000 people. I-Corps graduate teams have raised over $300 million in funding to support startup development and have created over 600 startups. So this sounds fantastic. Why don't we always follow this approach? Well, because it's difficult. Really difficult. No, really, really difficult. Let's review a brief case study where customer discovery was used to understand the potential of developing a medical training device from laboratory research. The technology is simple. A computer simulation uses motors to make a user feel like they are being pushed or pulled by a virtual object, a haptic or sense of touch simulator. If the virtual object is a laparoscopic surgical tool, then the user could be made to feel that they are performing surgery. If the surgical environment could be recreated in this computer simulation, then maybe it could be used to train surgeons. It seems obvious that whoever trains surgeons would absolutely want this device, right? The starting hypothesis was medical schools would buy this haptic technology to reduce training costs and improve training results. The assumptions were that there was a sizable market, mandates on training that would help support the need, and the surgeons would like it, so the technology would be well received. To examine this hypothesis, over 100 people were contacted. The users and influencers and those affected by the training were asked open-ended questions about how they trained surgeons for force-based skills and where there could be improvements. Initial conversations with surgical residents were leveraged to find other people with whom to connect. What we learned as a result of the interviews was surprising. First, the surgery training ecosystem is very complex. Second, medical schools are not sitting waiting to spend a lot of money to solve this problem. In fact, it doesn't exactly seem to be their problem. The training landscape is quite complicated, with an important element being the apprenticeship relationship, in which an experienced surgeon shows the novice new surgical skills. The novice surgeon assists with those cases. So it is difficult to identify who would care enough about a new solution to training to buy a simulator. Third, the amount of time spent on acquiring force skills is rather small. Surgeons stated, "I don't know how I learned it, I just did." And last, there may be better opportunities for this technology, such as enhancing the user interface for surgical robots. So to recap, starting with a hypothesis about what we believed, we actively listened to discover the truth about what the customer, trainers, and trainees wanted. Basically, we found the customers are satisfied with the current laparoscopy force skills learning approach, that it's acquired through practice during a very small and crowded training window, and it meets their needs. It was very valuable to know that the market wasn't sitting waiting for the product we were considering. The process successfully informed our research, but the customer feedback suggested we might find better translational opportunities In summary, customer discovery is the process of seeking the customer voice to inform development of new ideas and products by identifying experts, posing open-ended questions, and listening carefully to the answers. Customer discovery is a set of skills that will enhance any endeavor, but it is a process that needs practice and includes identifying customers, listening, and asking good questions. Hopefully, you realize that customer discovery can be applied to many aspects of your career and will help you be a better innovator and inventor. A sincere thank you to the National Science Foundation and the National Academy of Inventors, as well as the many individuals who helped construct this learning module.